Here with another knife review. This is of the SOG Vulcan Mini. It's a cool little knife. Small enough to carry concealed, big enough to handle medium carry duty with good leverage, and it's tough enough to fight with if you need to, because it's a nice, beefy, chunky knife. Get the box out of the way. Here you can see SOG Vulcan Mini, mini-vulcan, VLO2. Comes in a couple different versions. This is the Vulcan Mini. There's a full-size version of this. Comes with this satin blade, satin spear point blade. Comes in a tanto blade, fixed blade. So several options depending on what you're looking for. Speaking of the blade, it is VG10 steel. I like that steel. Much better than the AUS-8 steel, for instance, of this SOG Flash 1 that I have, which is a great knife, but this VG10 is a much better steel. Comes nice and razor sharp out of the box. Love the spear point of the shape of this blade. That's actually probably the thing that drew me to this knife initially, was the blade shape. It's a nice, beefy, chunky blade, and I love the shape of that. So it's not a thin blade, 0.125 inches thick, 3 inches long, so it's a pretty beefy blade, which again makes it kind of versatile for, you know, again, concealed carry, bit of a tactical use or defensive use if need be. So, nice blade. Love the blade. Love the recurvature. Looking back at the handle, handle is GRN, glass reinforced nylon, pretty decently grippy. Has these finger, finger grooves here that you can get your fingers into, and a little bit of a ramp here down into the thumb studs if you want to open it that way. So it's a nice grip. Has the SOG logo back here. Some people I've seen have complained that when the blade is shut, that back here, that this part of the blade will catch on your pocket, on your clothing. I have not had any problems with that. So, you know, I've seen the complaints. It's not at all been an issue for me. But I can see where that does stick out a little bit compared to a knife where it's, you know, buried in the knife, like this Benchmade Griptilian. But again, has been a problem for me. It seems to be decently recessed in there enough, so that's not a problem. Has a lanyard hole here. The pocket clip has SOG's deep carry, super deep carry, typical of SOG's. Pocket clip's reversible. As you can see, you put it in your pocket. The only thing that sticks out is that pocket clip. So nice pocket clip design if you want it to sit pretty low, and which is similar to the pocket clip on this Flash 1. Same deal. So good for that. A lot of other knives, you know, the knife is going to stick out a little bit because of the way the pocket clip's designed. But the clip on this is very nice. The handle, it's a partial flow-through design. Kind of curves out here. One of my two beefs with this knife, 2.5 beefs, I'll get to those a little bit, but it's a chunky handle. You know, it's this is by no means what I would call a small knife. In comparison, for instance, there's a Benchmade Mini Griptilian. Now that's a good, decently small everyday carry knife. You can see the handle is quite a bit beefier on this SOG. Similarly, full-size Griptilian. Full-size Griptilian probably is a little bit thicker. But, you know, they're pretty close in size, actually, the full-size Griptilian. Except the blade, I think, is going to be longer. The overall knife is going to be longer. So, anyway, back to the handle. Jimping here, the jimping on the bottom here from the side, as you can see, you can't even see it, and consequently when you put your finger in there, you can barely feel it. The jimping right down here actually comes from the jimping right here on the blade for the flip mechanism, which I'll get to in a minute. And then when you open it up, that becomes a little bit of jimping right here. Jimping up on the top here, there's none here. Little, I mean, kind of similar to the bottom right here. You can't feel it at all. And then you get down to the blade, up under the thumb ramp here. There's a little bit of jimping there. Not very long, but a little bit you can sink your thumb into, for what that's worth. Now, the locking mechanism on this has SOG's arc lock mechanism, which is very similar to Benchmade's Axis lock. And basically the Same mechanism, just a little bit different design. On the arc lock here, it has just a little bit of an curvature or an arc, hence the name, whereas on the Benchmade it is pretty much just a straight back and forth design. So same locking mechanism, just a little bit different design, a little bit different proprietary type design. It opens up nice and quick. Couple ways you can open it. You can use the thumb studs, nice and quick. You can grab the arc lock and flip it open, but sometimes if you are not careful with that, you can end up with a blade that kind of bounces up and then ends up like that. So that's not great. Alternatively, it has the flipper design where you can just flip it open. Again, nice and quick and easy. Usually I give it a little flick of the wrist, but you can do it without that. It'll still open, just not quite as fast. But fine, if works just fine that way. So opens very easy, very consistently. Very nice. Locks up nice and stiff. There's actually a little bit of blade play here. And I've actually loosened this a little bit. You can just take a Torx bit here, put it in this Torx hole, and just tighten it down a little bit. And still opens up nice and quick. But I've adjusted a little bit, I've oiled it a little bit, and I love the lock mechanism. Opens up nice and quick. The only beefs I have with this knife, just a few, it's thick. It's over ½ an inch thick. So carrying it in your pocket, it's going to take up some space, some width. Again, comparing it to something super thin like this SOG Flash 1, I mean, wouldn't really put them in the same category, but it's pretty thick. Another beef I have, the liner here. This is a small thing. The liner is not milled out, and they could save a little bit of weight there if they'd mill that out, kind of like Benchmade does with their liners. It's going to be a little hard to see. Actually, that one's not milled out. But some of the Benchmade liners are milled out, and we'll save a little bit of weight on them. This one's not, and it's not a super light blade knife, 3.4 ounces, so they can save a little bit of weight there. I think my biggest beef with this is the studs on the arc lock. They stick out there, and when I have this coming out of my pocket, they tend to get caught on things because this edge here, as it's coming out, snags on something. And it doesn't look that big, but if you compare it to the Benchmade design, they're nice and flat on there. They have no problems catching on anything. And you can see when you compare them just how much bigger those studs are, how much bigger they are. I mean, you wouldn't think that would be an issue, but every time I pull it out of my pocket, I almost feel like it's a little stuck. So, the Benchmade is still plenty. They stick out enough that you can grip onto them no problem, but they're flat enough that they don't cause any problems. These are almost just a little bit. See, there's what happens if you grip them to try and open it up. But they could just be flatter, and I would prefer that. So, people that like jimping, it could perhaps have a little bit more jimping. Both sides, I don't really think that's a big issue. But those are just kind of my few issues with the knife. I think it's a very durable knife. These GRN handles I think are going to last for a long time. This blade, the VG10, is great. Sharpens up very nicely. Came very sharp out of the box. Value of the knife, retail price, $155. That's probably a little bit steep. Thankfully, it's going for a lot cheaper than that. You can get it almost half that, probably closer to $90. And at that price, I think it's a good value. So, no big complaints there. It's a cool knife. Love the shape of it. Love the blade steel. Love the shape of the blade. Nice beefy blade. Lots of purposes for it. So check it out. Let me just give you a couple close-ups of it here. Some close-ups of the blade here. On the back here you can see VG10 made in Japan there. There's that little bit of jimping there on the thumb ramp and that arc lock mechanism. You can see through there, obviously not milled out. There's the side. And then on the back here, there's that little cutout SOG logo. Pocket clip. So, there you go. SOG Vulcan Mini. Cool knife. Check one out.